Will coronavirus lead to change? One clear outcome from the coronavirus has been the idea that things need to change once we are past the crisis point. There is a growing consensus that the old way of doing things did not work, and there is a need for some form of systemic change. Coronavirus has indeed been merciless in exposing the deteriorating state of British institutions and life. This has included the chronic neglect and underfunding of the NHS and the class divide, which sees the middle class able to continue working from the safety of their homes, while low-skilled workers have to risk their health and lives on the front line of public services. The speed with which the homeless were sheltered early on shows what can be done with the proper political motivation. There is therefore no reason why solutions cannot be found to the other intractable social problems in the country, in areas such as social care, health, housing, and inequality. However, a note of caution needs to be injected into this near-universal desire for change. We have been here before during the financial crisis in 2008. Although the nature of risk is somewhat different now, we need to remember that the financial crisis of 2008 came with calls and an expectation that capitalism needed to change radically. However, far from a significant change to the excesses of capitalism taking place, the culprits were left free to continue accumulating wealth on a vast scale. While the population had to suffer perpetually frozen wages, and the imposition of a gig economy that entrenched job insecurity, low pay and appalling work conditions. And at the end of all this, the UK suffered reduced GDP rates, a depreciating pound, and reduced levels of purchasing power and productivity. If we are not careful, we could find ourselves facing the same equation with the COVID virus. The main suspicion with Boris Johnson's chaotic reversals, mixed messaging, and U-turns is that he was facing pressure from right-wing MPs to reopen the economy as soon as possible. By this reasoning, the economy needs saving, and additional deaths are regrettable yet necessary collateral damage. Therefore, Freedom Day and the abandonment of all precautions are an acceptable sacrifice. This represents a form of economic Darwinism whereby the less fit can be sacrificed for the survival of the economy. It is therefore likely that those with an interest in preserving the status quo will stand against any meaningful reform post-COVID-19. They will argue that it was an anomaly, a once-in-a-lifetime event. By all means learn the lessons from what failures there were, but it is not worth changing the system for such a rare and isolated occurrence. Any potential change will inevitably have to be a bottom-up affair, in which society pushes for the changes it knows need to happen. Already there are signs that a return to the old ways will be the government's preferred course of action. This can be seen in the decision to cut increases to universal credit, the speed with which the congestion charge in London was returned at increased rates, and the derisory pay increases offered to NHS staff. The government has also refused to cut the £625 NHS surcharge that foreign health and care workers are obliged to pay, despite the shortage of health staff in the middle of a pandemic. This is why waiting for top-down change from the government is a recipe for failure. The British people may not know exactly what changes they want, but they do know that the old way was not working for a variety of reasons. However, those in power have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo. Any change, however, will have to come from the bottom up. This will require a new form of sustained civic engagement, once this virus is behind us, in determining and campaigning for the type of change that reverses the glaring inequalities that exist in 21st century Britain. In this, the experiment with citizen assemblies are a good start. The desire for change through decoupling from Westminster is already evident to differing extents in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. The negative effects of Brexit are finally filtering from sections of the economy through to the general population, and are likely to get worse this winter. Whether England can rouse itself from its comfortable default position of political apathy to bring about meaningful, bottom-up change remains the unanswered question. Only time will tell.